I remember it like yesterday when Matt came down the stairs and said so casually with a smile, I booked a one-way ticket to Santiago, Chile. I thought to myself, is this real? Can we really leave our amazing careers, friends, and family? Fast forward 10 months later, after all the hard conversations, endless checklists, and heartfelt goodbyes, we were heading to the airport with one backpack each, about to set out for a multi-year adventure around the world. Filled with excitement, we had no idea what to expect, but we knew it would be a fun ride. Join us as we share what we are learning on our journey of a lifetime. This is Passport Joy Travel Talk with Nikki and Matt Javit. Thank you so much for listening today. This episode is all about South Africa and the 3 months we spent here. We're going to talk to you about wineries, safaris, deep sea fishing, hiking up some amazing mountains, South African barbecues, Cape Town, rugby matches, and cricket. We'll also answer a listener's question about what we have learned about ourselves and each other. And you will learn about Matt's obsession with hangers. Please be sure to subscribe on the podcast tool that you use, whether it be iTunes, Stitcher, or Overcast. When you subscribe, you will automatically receive each episode when it is published. Please stay tuned for the details of our awesome contest, where we have over $1,000 worth of prizes from the brands we absolutely love. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, here we go.
Okay, today we're going to talk about South Africa. As we wrap up the 3 months we've spent here, we want to give you the highlights of all the things that we loved and reasons that we think people should come visit. It was in Cape Town that helped us make the decision to travel full-time a little less than 2 years ago. And we love being here. We love everything that has to offer. And we're going to get into that today. First of all, let's just talk about it is a far flight from home, from the U.S. And it's a common complaint. And it's something that people talk about often from the few Americans that we've met here, that it is over 24 hours of flying to get here. Depending upon, you usually have 2 or 3 stops to get here. And it is a far distance. 24 hours is a long way to travel anywhere you're going in the world. It's similar if you're going to India or some of the Southeast Asia locations that aren't so easy. And 24 hours is a long time. So it is, we understand that, but it's worth it. If you have 2 weeks of vacation and you have a chance to get away to somewhere unique, we do think South Africa should be on your list. We met a lot of Europeans that came here. When their flights are a lot easier, this seems to be a high destination location for Europeans. But I think the Americans would also enjoy it and just love all the beauty that comes from the coast, the mountains, the hills. There's a lot of green. There's parts of the garden route that we were on, particularly in the east, that has a lot more green. Obviously, Cape Town is not as green with some of the water problems they're currently having, but they're gorgeous. 2 major tourist cities of Cape Town and Durban are big U.S. They feel like an American cities with their technology and their size and I guess their newness, like the American cities are. And they're just unbelievably vibrant cities where you can get great restaurants, have great food, get top-notch service. And speaking English is a big deal. So it takes down a lot of those barriers as you travel where you can speak and communicate to people right away. That's a cool thing. That's some of the things that we like about South Africa right off the bat. As far as Cape Town goes, it does get a lot of the glory, and rightly so, of South Africa. It is one of the most gorgeous cities that we've ever been to in the world because essentially you've got this Table Mountain, which is one of the new 7 wonders of the world. It's this huge mountain. The name makes sense because it's big and flat. There's the views from above it over the city are gorgeous, but there's also a ton of mountains around it that you can look at Table Mountain and see the city below it, this mega city that sits on water. So this is a gorgeous, beautiful city that offers so much. And with Cape Town, you also have other locations like Lion's Head. I guess it's a mountain that's near it. And there's many other hikes that you can do, not only at Lion's Head, but other locations near it that have different paths. Do you want to talk about our hiking experience there, Nick? This was the second time we did Lion's Head. Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, so when the first time we were in Cape Town, we hiked up what's called Lion's Head. And I'm not really an avid hiker, but the first time I did it, I thought it was a pretty tough hike. And now the second time that I did it, I mean, granted, I've done several hikes in between in the different countries that we've traveled to. This time around, it was much easier, but it is just such a gorgeous hike. I mean, when you do the hike itself, all along the trail, there's just a plethora of vegetation and really, really beautiful overlook of the entire city of Cape Town that you can just see, like as far as the eye can see. And the ocean view is just really pretty. And there's just a lot of people along the way that you can talk to if you want to. And it's not a very difficult hike from the perspective of as far as dangerous. I mean, there are some narrow paths, like is no guardrail on the side to prevent you from falling over the side. But as far as like climbing goes, there's only a couple places on the hike where I can really think of that you would need to maneuver your way up either a ladder that they have or some ropes. But they do have alternative routes that you can go around if you really don't want to navigate that part in the hike. But it's just a really nice hike to do. And there's people who choose to do that hike during the day. And there's people who like to do that hike more towards like the sunset hour. So you can hike later in the day when it's much cooler outside and then enjoy that sunset when you get to the top and watch that sunset over Cape Town. So I really liked that hike and I really suggest that to you guys to do. I enjoyed it much more the second time around.
Yeah, Lions is a really good way to take in the city of Cape Town. And then as we traveled about, we went to Cape Town, Mossel Bay, Victoria Bay, which is part of George, all that's part of George. And so along the Garden Route and then Durban. And along that path of the Garden Route, there's a ton of places where you can hike, a lot of different paths. And a lot of it is, some of them are along the coastline. So not only do you get the challenge of the mountains and the rocks and the close edges, but you hear the waves crashing along the way. So for those that like to hike, I've got buddies that live in Denver and stuff like that. I highly recommend South Africa because you get a lot of that from here. Moving to surfing. Now, surfing is something that I've attempted to learn surf lessons twice. I've struggled with it. I have a lot of reasons why. Most of them are bad excuses, but this trip helped me determine that probably not going to be a surfer. The water here is pretty ice cold along the Western Cape, and then it gets warmer as you go to the Eastern Cape. But that said, with some of the things that we heard about sharks, and you can see sharks, and then you see the seals near the water, it was kind of freaky to think about surfing in that water. So I ended up not surfing at all. I got into the water many times while we were here, but I never got far enough that I'd want to surf. So I kind of just tossed that up to, I'm going to probably pass on surfing for now and maybe do that in the future, but not as far as right now. Surfing's not high on my list of things to do.
Yeah, for me, when I came here, that was like one of my goals was to like become this great surfer. And then, like Matt said, when we got here, I mean, even when I just so much as put my toe in the water when we were in Muizenberg, I mean, it's like ice cold. And I mean, that's probably why you see all these surfers with these really thick suits on while they're just even in the water. I mean, that in itself is not the main reason I didn't do the surf thing here. It is one of the reasons. I hate being cold in the water. I mean, my idea of a great day at the beach is to bask in the warm sun and catch some rays and not be shivering in the cold water. But for me, I guess the turnoff was at the beaches, you have these like shark lookout points all along the beach coastline. And they have these flags that are put out every day along the coastline that tell you if there has been a shark sighting or whatnot. And I think that kind of was just like something that got in my head. And not that even the flag would say that there was a shark sighting, but just that issue of I'm lying out on the beach and you have a shark lookout point that's like literally a building where there are people that are paid to sit in this building all day long and look out if there are sharks spotted in the water. And so I just kind of was a little uneasy about that, you know, getting into the water, not being a avid surfer and just not feeling great about that situation, knowing that that was a necessary thing for them to have these paid people looking out for sharks. So yeah, I didn't really try to do surfing this time around, but yeah, I mean, kudos to those people who do that because it's a pretty scary situation. And then another thing too, there are seals everywhere. And a lot of us know that that is like the number one shark food. So I didn't really feel comfortable when you see these seals just swimming around in the sea, just knowing that there could be sharks close by and then seals swimming there. I mean, that's just another thing too. Like, I mean, the seals are cute and all, and we've actually have swam with seals before, but I really just didn't want to put myself in a situation where I knew that I was going to be trying to surf. I'm not a good surfer. There's shark lookout points. There's seals swimming amongst me. and then just the potential for that. So I didn't try surfing this time. So I'm kind of like, scaredy cat for that.
Yeah. The last time we were in Cape Town, we swam with the seals, and that is a highlight for sure. Something I'll never forget because you get into the waters and literally hundreds of seals are around you. And seals, to me, they're the dogs of the sea because they're so curious and they let you not necessarily pet them, but touch them, and they get really close to your face. So it's a blast. But when you see seals, you understand that, okay, sharks are close. So that was a determinant for us. And actually, I'll tell a story a little bit later with one of the deep sea fishing that I went on. But the guide that I was with had a video that essentially had this ginormous shark that was not far away from where people were swimming in the water. So it was pretty crazy. All right, transitioning on the wineries. You might not know, South Africa is known for having a ton of wineries. It's a blast. It can be a great day out if you have a driver, or you can go on scheduled tours that you can hit 2 or 3 of them in a day, but they're spread throughout the country, and it's a great way to pass time. And a lot of people come here just to do the wine tours. And then they also have great food as well. I'll let Nikki talk about the wineries a little bit.
Yeah, so South Africa is amazing. It's unlike the United States where typically when you go on a wine tour, like a Napa Valley or something, it's really expensive. And in South Africa, they have all these different wineries all over with different themes that you can do, like cupcakes and wine tastings or cheese pairings with wine tastings. They even have themes where you can go and there's like a winery that is in a cave and you can do wine tastings like that. But it's very cheap. The typical wine tasting would consist of like 5 different wines, up to 8 different wines. And you can do these tastings for, anywhere from like $5 to $6. And it's just a really nice way to either visit a winery and you can do a tour of the winery, walk amongst the vineyards and just see how they grow their grapes, and they can show you how that they press the grapes and then make the actual wine. Or you can just go there and have like a nice lunch with your friends and family and do the tastings and the pairings. Or you can just go there and not have food and do the tastings themselves. So it's a really cheap, inexpensive way to have fun, taste the different South African wines, or learn about, how they make their wines differently than we do.
Yeah. And with speaking of food, I don't think that there's a huge difference into what we're used to as far as, I guess, the selection of food from the States that there is from South Africa. But the one thing that does stand out is they throw around the word braai very often. It's essentially an American barbecue that's highly focused on meat. And they do these cookouts. They do these braais that they say that every Sunday or Saturday is a braai day, but they can do them not only outside, but also in their homes. One of the hosts that we stay with had an amazing braai in her home, and the meat that they focus on is a wide range of meat. I actually had lamb's tail, lamb's intestines, some fish. And like I said, my food role is typically on the road is I attempt to be vegetarian when I can, but if somebody offers me any sort of meat, then I'll eat it. Anybody takes time to prepare food for me, then I will eat it. Nikki, she will continue to stay in her vegan lifestyle, but I will open up based on where we're at and where we're staying. So I've eaten some crazy things on the road. And to me, like that lamb's tail was pretty, not nasty, but just different. And the intestines as well is kind of a stretch. But it was good. And the braai itself is a fun experience because then you combine like wine and beer, and then you have all the different assortment, just like we do at a barbecue, of many different variations of food, vegetables. And they also have this amazing bread called Rooster Cook that is essentially this toasted bread that they toast on the grill, and they add all kinds of jams and all kinds of stuff to it. So I don't know, I guess, the fish here as well, the fish on the braais is amazing, but because the closeness to the water and the sea, they have all kinds of a wide range of fish that you can get, whether it's calamari up to the different assortments of fish as well. So transitioning from the food onto safaris. Now, safaris are a big deal for people when you talk about Africa or South Africa. I know some of Central Africa has a lot of safaris, but there's some huge ones here as well to see the big five. And so people travel all over the world to come to South Africa to go to these safaris.
Yeah, so the first time around when we went to South Africa, everyone kept trying to talk me into going on a safari, and I was terrified. And I felt pretty bad when we came home because I knew that Matt wanted to go on one, and I just could not talk myself into it. I mean, I had these terrible visions of myself being mauled by a tiger, or having some cheetah come out of the woods and scratching me or something. And I know that's an irrational fear, but somehow it convinced myself that the guide that was carrying this gun would not be able to fend, the people in the Jeep off with this just one gun or something. I don't know. I don't know what I convinced myself of, but I did. And so, a couple years had passed and I had several friends had visited South Africa or parts of Africa, and they kept talking about safaris all the time. And it would always come up like, I can't believe that you went to South Africa and didn't go on a safari. And I just felt like really bad about it. So this time around, when we were in Mossel Bay, our host had asked us, hey, do you want to go on a safari? And I mean, I still was reserved about it. And she said, there's this smaller place that is located near us that doesn't have the big five. They have the four. And we can go there and it's very tame. Like these animals are more like rehabilitated animals. And it's not dangerous at all. And it's not like the Kruger National Park that you're thinking about. And, they take you on smaller, it's more of like a mini safari. And for some reason, I don't know, I just felt very comfortable with her. We had stayed with her for 3 weeks at this time. And I just felt like, okay, maybe this is my time. I'll just try it. And, Matt and her just kept making jokes like, we'll put you in the middle of us and they'll eat us before they eat you type thing. So whatever, I just said, okay, I'm going to take one for the team and I'll go. So anyways, we went and it was just a really nice, amazing, beautiful experience. And during that day, we did see the 3 of the animals. Like we saw the rhinoceros and a giraffe and a zebra and an elephant, but we did not see the lion that we were supposed to see. But I was really okay with that. And quite honestly, before we even went, I was like praying. I was like, please, I do not want to see the lion. Like that was the thing that scared me the most. But come to find out, like I was really educated a lot by our guide. And he said that lions out of all of the animals are like the most lazy animal. And so if it is hot outside, which it was, I mean, we're in Africa, they will seek shade. So they are not going to come out during the blazing hot sun and just be like trotting around during the day. So they weren't even out. And like we were looking so hard to find these lions, like probably for like 45 minutes, because everyone obviously they came there to see that. And I mean, these things were like in a bush somewhere, trying to seek shade and be in the cool. But yeah, it was a really nice experience. We got some great photos from it. And I mean, just the feeling that I got to see, rhinoceroses and their babies walking with them in the wild. It's just something different about that from seeing it in a zoo, or it's just, it was just it was very mesmerizing. And I'm really glad that we did it. And I highly suggest it. And if anyone has reservations like I did, finding somewhere where it's not as big as Kruger National Park and going to a place like we did, and Matt can put that in the show notes, but it just made me feel more safe as opposed to going to a larger place.
Yeah, and then obviously you save a ton of money too by going to the shorter version of that. But we did have friends that went to Cougar and their photos and their videos were amazing. I mean, to see some of this stuff is mind-blowing. The big 5, just so you understand it, is the African elephant, the black rhinoceros, the African buffalo, the lion, and the African leopard. The leopard was the one that was not at the place that we were at because those are a bit rare, I believe. But yeah, the safari was amazing. Later, I had a chance to go to a cheetah conservation that also had other animals. And there I did see the leopard, and it is a unbelievable animal. After I came back, I told Nikki that I grew up loving the cheetah. I don't know, I did like a paper when I was in like 3rd grade or something, and it always stuck with me. But after I saw the African leopard, and the skin, it was just unbelievable. I never realized how gorgeous that creature is. That will always stick with me. And there was also the lion and a few other baby cheetah. In those places, I tell you, it's torn because as we've had a chance to travel a bit around the world and we've seen the tigers in Thailand and different things, and we've ridden elephants, sometimes we're just not sure on how the animals are treated in some of those places. And you just never know. That was the thing I could tell you about the safari we went to, is I actually felt good that we didn't see the lion, because it gave me a sense of they weren't dragging these animals out of where they were living by giving them fake meat or something, or giving them meat to come see people. And it made me feel good, like, okay, it's kind of a natural setting for them and they're not exploiting them in some way. The conservation, you never know. They say that they're doing the right things. Hopefully they are rehabilitating these cheetah, because the cheetah is an endangered species. And so hopefully it's right. But yeah, you just never know when you go to those places. And I left there feeling okay, but it's just hard to determine if everybody's doing the right thing. So going from the cheetah, and if you love animals, then Africa obviously is the place to be, to see all these crazy animals. And it's amazing. Like Nikki said, the hippos. And at that conservation place, I had a chance to see bats, hippo, and all kinds of other animals, both flight and land-based, that will stick with me. And then we had a chance, as we said earlier, we swam with the seals. And there's penguins. There's even penguins in Cape Town at a place called Boulder Beach where you can see the penguins on shore. So that's a lot of fun. Transitioning from those safaris to a couple of fishing trips that I had that will always stick with me. Just some background. I'm not a fisherman per se. I come from a family that we've fished throughout my life, and I've had a chance to fish with Nikki's father as well. But I wouldn't say that we live close to water back home where I live, and I've caught bass and other things in the pond that we live near as well. But I'm not necessarily like a hardcore fisherman like these guys. But that said, I love learning this stuff. I love seeing the process. I love going out and having the experience of fishing. And so while we're out here, when we were in Mossel Bay, which was down the coastline, it's in the Garden Route area, I found a guy who is known. He's a YouTube star for not only deep sea fishing, but also land-based rock and surf fishing. So I connected with him once we got there. And since we had this month of flexibility, I just went into there. He's got a bait and tackle shop. And I just went in and just basically let him know that, hey, I'm going to be here a month. I'm flexible. Just ping me if you have a chance for me to join you with other people. If you go out on a boat or if you're doing some land-based stuff, you think it'd be cool, just hit me. So we exchanged WhatsApp numbers, and he would just send me photos and just say, hey, you want to come out today? You want to come out today? And based on my schedule, I would say yes or no. And it was usually no. A lot of it was extremely last minute, but there was a chance. It was about probably 10 days in after we had met. He sent me a note that said, at this time, I was scheduled to meet with him on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And on that Wednesday night, he said, hey, Friday night, we're going out. Do you want to go? And I knew we had the day open. So I said, yes, I'm in. So he said, cool, I'll pick you up at midnight. And then he gave me a high level what to wear, but that was basically the message, like grabbing you at midnight. It's going to be awesome. Time of your life. Let's do it. So he comes at midnight on this Friday. I'm geared up because I knew I had to dress warm because it gets really cold at night in Africa. So he picks me up and then we're off. It's me and him. He is super excited. Now, this is a guy that gets to do this for a living and he fishes all the time, but he is just so excited. He's telling me, Matt, this is going to be a time of your life. This is a unique day. This only happens once or twice a year where it is this calm on the water and we are going to have a blast. So we left there. He came by. We didn't have a car. So he came by, picked us up. We went and grabbed the boat. Now, the boat was getting prepared by one of the gentlemen that this guy makes these boats, and then our host Sean takes them out on the water to basically test them to make sure that they run well before they sell them to the potential clients. So we took out a test boat. It was me, Sean, and four other guys. There were 6 of us total, and we head out into the water. Now we had to drive another hour and a half to a bay where we could dock off of, and then so we're out in the water at 2 a.m. at this point. And I had a little bit of knowledge of what we were doing, but not full. And essentially what Sean was telling me was we're going deep into the water because it's such unique timing that there was no wind that we could actually go very deep out into the water. So we take off at 2 a.m. and it is pitch black on the water. And we're going about 35 to 40 kilometers per hour, which is pretty fast in the water. And it's pretty chilly, but not too cold because they gave me the best seat in the house. But it was unbelievable because it was so still outside and you could see the moon and all the stars as we're going over the water. And we're about an hour into this. And I don't know if you've ever ridden on a boat when it's that dark or that cold. It's my first time that I've ever ridden on a boat that was like, this is like a fishing boat that was that small, but it was also that extremely dark at that point at night that time kind of sits still. So we're about an hour into this thing. And Sean comes back. Some of these guys are laying down on the boat because the water's splashing and it's pretty crazy. But Sean comes back and he's like, hey, dude, we're an hour in, just 2 hours to go. And I thought he was joking, but I was like, maybe he's not. I was like, are you serious? We got 2 more hours of this? And he's like, yeah, 2 more hours. He's like, it takes about 3 hours to get there. So I was like, okay, cool. And at that point, it kind of changed my mind. I readjust my mindset of how I was going to take in these next 3 hours or the next 2 hours. But in the end, 3 hours on the water like that wasn't a bad deal because it was just such a unique experience to be that dark with the gorgeous moon and all the stars and just flying across the water in perfect stillness. So a little after 5 a.m., we get out into the middle of nowhere in the ocean. It was about 90 kilometers deep into the deep water. And we arrive and there's like 8 or 10 other boats out there, most of them bigger than ours. Most of them are commercial sized boats. I think there was one other non-commercial boat. And all these guys out here are fishing with their hands. Now, when I say fishing with their hands, they have the line and they're tossing it over. They're putting old fish or fish bait on the lines, and that is weighted down, and they're throwing it over with their hands and then using their hands to pull in fish. It was unbelievable for me to see and witness all this. But you'd have like 12 or 15 guys per boat, and they're just tossing it over, pulling it in, and one captain on the boat basically orchestrating the whole thing, and they're just pulling fish in. And some of the stuff they could keep based on their license, and some of the stuff they couldn't. Now, we were fishing for yellowtail, and there's a lot of rules around what you can fish for way out in that deep. And yellowtail is one of the things where we can only catch so much. So the plan was we get out there, crush these yellowtail, because the way yellowtail go, they pack in these schools that once they're together and you're bringing them in, then you're really dragging them in, is what Sean told me. That once you start bringing in a few yellowtail, once you find the school of yellowtail, it's endless. And the plan was, Sean told me later, was that we would arrive around 5:15 like we did, and we'd be out of there by 7 because the boat would be full of yellowtail because you can only keep 10 apiece. That's not what happened. We kind of cruised around, we fished, we kept throwing over our lures with no help. And we met another boat that Sean talked to the captain. Now, to take a step back, nobody was speaking English on the boat. These guys were all speaking in Afrikaans. Now, Afrikaans is the language they speak down here. It's a form of Dutch because the Dutch people brought it when they came here, but it's nothing that I can understand. So most of the time I was on the boat, I didn't understand anything. And the whole time I was in the car, I didn't understand anything. But Sean would come and talk to me on the side and say, hey, this is what's going on. And he would keep me in the loop. Most of these guys can speak both English and Afrikaans, but Afrikaans is just an easier language for them to speak because it's their foreign tongue. So Sean was speaking Afrikaans to the other captain boat, and what they had learned was the fish had moved. All of these yellowtails have moved, and they had gone further south down the ocean. And this was a bummer to us because we didn't have enough gas to get us to that next location. So after trying that spot again for a little bit, but taking that guy's word for it, in the end, a bunch of the boats started moving as well. So we ended up having to leave these boats, and essentially over the next, I think 7 to 9 hours on our way back home, slowly we would just stop and fish along the way. We would spot out the birds where the birds were on the ocean and then go there, and then we would fish for 45 minutes or so and then make our way back home. Now, it was kind of a bummer for all these guys. So these other 5 other guys on the boat, this was their biggest day of the year. They were so geeked up about it. To see these grown men, so a kid at Christmas, it was a bummer for me to see how down they were because we only ended up catching 2 keepers. Now, on the day we caught probably 12 to 15 different fish, but only 2 of them were keepers. And it just wasn't what the day was supposed to be. Was quite the bummer. So what we made our whole way, by the time we made our way back and we didn't get all these fish, but for me, it was like the time of my life. I mean, they even told me, they're like, Matt, they're like, you're probably one of the few Americans that has ever been this deep on the sea in a fishing boat and being able to experience what you experience, because being 90 kilometers that deep in the south in that ocean is not something somebody gets to do all the time. So I knew it was a unique experience, and being on the water at night like that, for me, it was something I'd never been through before. So I loved it. And it was one of those things where they had these expectations of what they were going to have that day where I had no expectations. So it's one of those things where if you don't go in thinking of a certain thing, it's really what you get out of it along the way. And it was a learning process for me because I went back at the end of the day telling Nikki how amazing it was. I know we didn't catch any fish, but it was just all that time together, seeing these guys and their craft and watching them how they did it, that it was such an awesome event. So we went from there, and then about a week and a half later, Sean called me again and said, hey, do you want to go try to catch some sharks? So they had another group. This time we left around 3 a.m, and it was another 2-hour drive down the coast. And we got to a great point where we had to trek about 5 kilometers through a trek to fish at this point where we were fishing for shark all day. And it was seal heaven. There was over, I don't even know, right in front of me, there was no less than 50 seals endlessly in this water at the end of the rocks at this point. And about another quarter of a mile out, there were hundreds of seals playing at the day. I had a chance to see a whale go by deep into the water, and also a huge, I'm not sure if they're called a school, but a school of dolphins, a big pack of dolphins went by during the day as well. So it was an amazing, just sitting there for the first, we ended up getting there at around, I think it was 6:45. We parked the car at 5:15, walked out, got there around 6:45, and we sat there for a good 5 hours before we had any action. I did have a chance to pull in, I don't know what it was. It could have been a shark, but we ended up losing it on the rocks. So I kind of failed in my attempt to do it. But then the Spaniard we were with, he did after, it was about an hour after I lost mine. The Spaniard jumped in and he had on his line a shark. It ended up being a shark, but he battled it for 3.5 hours. How this works is they go up and down the coastline with the fishing pole. And Sean, our guide, would walk towards the edge of the water. And he'd have to make sure that the line didn't get caught up in the rocks. So he'd have to run up and down the coastline as well with the Spaniard with the fishing pole. So it's not like you're standing there pulling in a shark for an hour or so. You're actually running up and down the coastline the entire time to make sure that, because you're going wherever the shark wants to go. If the shark wants to go deep into the water, then you're letting the line out. And then you got to pull the line, pull the line, pull the line, pull the line. And then if it decides to go left, you're going left. It goes right, you're going right. The shark's taking you where you wanted to take it. And then you just have to wait for the shark to get tired. So that was the process for 3.5 hours until the shark finally just gives up and you pull it in far enough that you could take it off the line, take a few photos and toss it back in. That whole process was very humane, by the way. And it was nice to see. I took some photos for the guys because I did help a little bit through the process, but I didn't feel like it was my catch. So I didn't get a photo with the shark, but I did get a chance to witness the entire process. And it was the way that Sean did it is the way that it should be done. So that was a great time to see that. And to see a shark that was probably over 400 pounds and that whole deal was mind blowing. So those were my attempts of fishing in the deep sea. And it was amazing, life-changing events for me because I'd never been part of either one of those things. And it was awesome. And it was a lot of fun and something that a lot of people, I think, would enjoy doing. And one of the reasons that I think that I was telling Nikki this, that I really think South Africa could be an amazing guys trip destination because not only the things that we were talking about earlier, it's an amazing couples place. Like we think it's super romantic. Cape Town's gorgeous. There's a lot of things you can do together as couples. And we've really enjoyed this time together that we've spent here because all the different things you can do as a couple. But if you had a group of guys that came together and did this, and I'm going to write a blog post about it as well, because I just think that it's something that I never saw anything written about a guy's trip to South Africa, but I really think between the hikes and the surfing opportunity, the waves, the fishing, and then the safari, and then also just to build on top of that, after the safari and all that goes into that, also there's rugby matches. Nikki and I had a chance to go to a rugby match that is nuts. And by the way, these dudes are as tough as they come. I try to compare it to football, but there's not a comparison. You got to look at them each individually. They're so different. But these guys, how hard they hit each other and the endurance that goes into it, the endurance was probably the biggest surprise for me. But these rugby dudes are crazy and tough. So that was amazing. So you get to see a rugby match down here. And then cricket. Cricket's a lot like American baseball, where it's a long event. Cricket sometimes can be really long. The event we went to was actually a 5-day event, but cricket was a bucket list of mine because it's such a big sport in places like India, South Africa, and Australia that I really wanted to see it. So it was really cool to do that. So that's another thing on a guy's trip that you can do. But also things like golf, like the golfing that you can do along the coastline is beautiful and gorgeous. And there's casinos here. If you want to go to casinos, there's a lot of things that would make it an amazing guy's trip and something that you could combine a bunch into a 2.5-week type thing that could be a lot of fun.
I think guys like wine too. So for all you guys out there that like wineries, we had just mentioned that wine tours as well. So wineries for the guys.
Yeah, great point, Nikki, because that is a lot of fun too. So yes, I guess that wraps up the things to do in South Africa. But let me remind you that the people here, the people that were such a big part of our time and we loved it. And they were so kind and so inviting. The rides we got to churches and just the rides we got to like malls and stuff. We're not hitchhikers. People would pick us up on the road and it just felt comforting. And the time that we spent over meals, talking to people in the locals. And I had a chance to work closely with a youth organization where I went into one of the townships and visited with the people in the township. Townships are much like, I guess, would be termed as ghettos in America. It's kind of the underprivileged areas of the communities, and they're massive because based on how apartheid went and some of the struggle that was here through many, many years and not so long ago, there's still massive amounts of divisions in their communities. But I had a chance to go into a township and visit with the people, and that was a life-changing event for me as well. So yeah, but the people here are people that will probably have relationships for the rest of our lives, and it was a lot of fun. And then the dollar does go a long way. Now, it has changed greatly from our visit 2 years ago because their rand gets stronger because while we were here, they had a change in government. So it's something you want to watch. They're very optimistic about their government that's here. So the rand is getting stronger. Our dollar is currently weak. So that blend of those two made it more expensive than it was our last time, but it's still very cost friendly for our travel and for our stay. That's it. We really enjoyed our second trip to South Africa. Spending 3 months here has been a blast. And we encourage anybody to make this trip because I think that you'll have a wonderful time. All right, let's be real. Guys don't talk about underwear unless it's a problem or they're having some sort of issue. So that's why I haven't talked about mine. But since you asked, I wear Tommy John underwear. I wore it before we left, and I bought 7 pair, 1 a day, makes sense, right? Before we hit the road full time. And I'll tell you, it was a great decision. Tommy John is a revolutionary men's underwear brand that is redefining comfort. It's the perfect underwear to keep you comfortable no matter where we travel. I wore them climbing up Machu Picchu on this crazy scooter rides of the streets of Ho Chi Minh City. And when I was playing hoops with those kids in Kerala, India, they never rode up because they have the innovative design and proprietary fabrics to make sure that the legs never ride up, the waistband never rolls down, and you never get a wedgie because everybody's worried about that. And their horizontal quick draw fly has been described as life-changing. It is, I promise you, because the crazy situations we have on the road with the toilets sometimes we see, it is a game changer. Plus, all the Tommy John underwear is backed by best pair you'll ever wear or it's free guarantee. So if you don't love them, you can get your money back from Tommy John. But I've never had that problem. Like I said, I had a ton before I left, and I bought 7 pair before I hit the road. So go to passportjoy.com/Tommy. Again, passportjoy.com/Tommy to find their latest styles and great deals. If you want the best underwear you can have, whether at home or traveling, any time of the day.
While traveling abroad can be exciting, there are unfortunately times when we have to think about the unpleasant what-ifs that may occur that could ruin our wandering adventures around the world. Like, what if I get injured or sick abroad? What if my luggage is lost or stolen? What if my trip has to be canceled or interrupted? So prior to leaving the United States back in February of 2017, I did extensive research on many travel insurance companies online so that I could get the most comprehensive travel insurance plan that would provide the most benefits for both Matt and I. We decided to go with 7 Corners. 7 Corners offers customizable travel insurance plans to travelers all over the world. The 2 main products being travel medical plans and trip protection plans. Travel medical plans protect travelers when they get sick or injured abroad by providing medical coverage such as medical evacuations, 24-hour assistance, and medical maximums up to $5 million. Their trip protection plans protect the cost and expenses of your trip in case you have to cancel, you have a trip interruption, or delay your travels, as well as provide coverage for delayed, lost, or damaged luggage. So you can sign up today for all your travel medical plans or trip protection plans at passportjoy.com/insurance. Again, that's passportjoy.com/insurance. Okay, today our question comes from Mickey in Indianapolis, Indiana. He writes, you guys have a lot of time for self-reflection and can really know what makes your spouse tick. What have you learned about yourself and what have you learned about your spouse? It's a really good question, Mickey. Okay, so what I've learned about myself is that I am really a type A person and I really like to have things laid out and I like things super regimented, just everything to be in line and kind of spelled out for me. But since I've traveled, I'm kind of like on the fly about things. And I'm really just like, meh, I don't really care anymore. I kind of just go with the flow. If Matt suggests something, I'm like, sure, whatever. And I really don't know how this has happened. He can attest to this, but I've let go of that type A personality. And I still have it in certain aspects of my life, in certain areas of my life. But when it comes to plans and when it comes to itineraries, I don't really need one of those anymore. So I trust the unknown. I just go with the flow. So I've learned about myself that I have the ability to just go with the flow and just kind of show up and just be there. And I really like that about myself now. So, and then on to the next part is, what have I learned about Matt? So I guess prior to going, and I hope I explained this well, but prior to going on our extended travel, Matt and I worked very well as like a husband and wife couple, but we never really had the ability to work on things together as like a work team. And what I've learned in traveling with Matt is that we are a really amazing work team together. We divide and conquer things to get things done, whether it's booking Airbnbs or flights or working on our blog together or working on our podcast together. We rock at doing that together. And before we traveled, we had our separate lives in the fact that Matt was very involved in his work and his volunteering endeavors. And as was I. I had my own separate things that I did, but we never really had projects when it came to like a working thing that we worked on together. And now I really love that we have that ability to be able to do that as a team together. And I really enjoy that. And we're pretty great at it together as a team.
Thanks, babe. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that we are working really well together. It's not always a lot of fun. We do argue and stuff when it comes to some of the things that we're working on. But she's right. It's been refreshing because you never know how it's going to be if we're working on the same project, trying to accomplish the same goal. And it's been awesome. So this question is a thoughtful one as well, and I appreciate it. So what I've learned about myself is I learned that I love hangers that you hang clothes on. Now, when we do Airbnbs and we show up and we have hangers, it's like a game changer for me because, and what I've learned is the fact that hangers symbolizes order for me. And if I can hang my stuff up, then I have order. And I don't know if it's just the way I grew up, but I always made my bed every day. I always just had I'm a big list guy. I was just super organized. So the whole order thing and hangers just keeps my life in order. So before I knew I was organized, but now I kind of know that I need it and it helps me have a better day every day. So that's kind of a weird thing that I learned. The other thing I learned is about 11 to 13 days is my sweet spot on staying at a location. Now it's important for long-term travel. Obviously in regular life, that's plenty of time to have a vacation. But after about 13 days, I started to get itchy and I'm ready to see the next thing. And it's not that it gets bad, but it's just like, okay, I'm ready to go. And I also thought that another thing I learned is I thought I'd be more chill about just chilling out more, hanging out more, not have to be super productive. But I've learned that I just enjoy being productive and trying to find value in some way every day. And I'm still trying to tap into that chill mode more often, but it's not as easy because it just is what it is. And then I guess less about myself and just about humankind in general is that my mind's been blown a bunch on the trip, whether it was the Inca ruins, the Taj Mahal, when we visited Venice and understood the history of Venice and how they built that city on basically nothing on the water. The abilities of humankind are just nuts and it's mind-blowing to see what people can do. So that's changed my philosophy in a lot of ways. Learning about Nikki, what I've learned about Nikki is we don't always see or hear the same thing. We could be at the same place at the same time and see something, see the exact same thing, and the way that I interpret it and the way she interpreted it is totally different. Now, this has probably gone on through our entire marriage, but when you're with somebody 24/7 and it happens on a regular basis, then you start to understand it and realize it like, oh man. And then so to me, it's been self-aware, like, okay, even though I'm experiencing something, she might not be experiencing the same thing. Like I might think something's cool or I might be offended in some way that somebody says something to me at a restaurant or whatever, but she might get something totally different out of that. So that has been a real eye-opener for me to understand how we can communicate, how we relate better as well. And then her toughness, I've said it before, but the whole cold shower thing, dirty situations, food. She took a brutal fall in Greece that we haven't really talked about. She crushed her knee and her chin. It was a bad stitch and she was so tough at that thing. Just her overall tough. She's always been tough, but I just know that now, like just how tough she is. in a lot of situations. So it's just been really cool to see as a husband, to just see how awesome she really is. And her focus, she did mention that she's super chill now. And like, she literally is like, I can say, hey, let's go to this country. And she's like, okay, whatever. And then I'll just start emailing her the Airbnbs that we've signed up for. And she's like, oh, cool. So we're going there now. I'm like, yeah, you said we could. And so she's super relaxed on that. But if I give her something when she's talking about us partnering on our task for the blog or something, and I say, hey, can you go do this? Or if I say, hey, I'm thinking about going to Vienna. Can you look into Vienna? Oh my God. It is just endless. It's Vienna everything for the next like 8 hours. And so I have to be like, okay, I get it. Like we have the Vienna plans, because she just zones in. And now it's like, I understand how you got your doctorate. I can remember when we were in our early years of marriage, she would study endlessly as she was going through her doctorate. And I was probably so busy with work that I didn't understand, like she would be studying for just hours on end. And I just remember like, man, how does she do that? Now I know, because she can just zone. Like it's crazy that she can zone like this. So I've really learned that spending 24/7 with her now. But she's amazing. It's been a lot of fun. Those are the things. Thanks for that awesome question. Again, if you have other questions, matt@passportjoy.com. We like to answer those, and hopefully we can bring insight on how we're doing what we're doing. Thanks. All right, hopefully you enjoyed that episode. We had a blast putting that together. Earlier, I spoke about the contest that we're having. And you know it's a good contest when you wish you could enter it. And I definitely wish I could enter this contest, because we've reached out to the awesome brands that we use and love, and they've stepped up to give us great prizes. We have over $1,000 worth of prizes already. Today's prize comes from the great people at Mizzen and Main. They're giving away a $125 gift certificate. Now, Mizzen and Main are the pants that I wear. I brought 2 pairs with me, one blue and one gray, and they're super versatile and extremely comfortable, and you can wear them in all kinds of situations. As an example, I wore them on the crazy hikes that we did through San Pedro de Atacama, Chile, and I wore them to the Taj Mahal in India. So you can see the type of versatility they have and the level of comfort to go up crazy mountain hikes or to walk through temples or churches. So please check them out at passportjoy.com/pants. Again, passportjoy.com/pants to check out their awesome styles. They've got shirts as well, and to see the different styles and prices and discounts you can get through there. Again, please rate and review on iTunes to enter this contest. Also, please subscribe on the podcast tool that you use, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, or on TuneIn as well. We use the Overcast app, and when you subscribe, it essentially brings the episodes directly to you as it's published. That'll help you keep up with all the content. Also, while you're out there, please check out the blog posts. We do a lot of posts out there. We've done a lot over the last year, so there's a lot of different posts that can be of value to you. So check that out and sign up for the newsletter while you're there as well. All right, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Thanks again for listening. We really appreciate it, and hopefully you're getting value out of it. And as always, safe travels.